Hi guys, Fuji has released a lot of gear in the past year with the X-T5, X-H2, X-H2S and more recently the XS20, and I have been wondering if I should replace my good old X-T3. So I'm gonna place myself from a landscape photographer perspective, we're gonna go to a sunrise together, and I'm gonna share with you the good, the bad and the really ugly. Alright, so let's go. I'm at sunrise now, and it's gonna be amazing to share with you all the stuff about the X-T3 while I'm having this wonderful view. So just for a little bit of context where I am now back in France and Switzerland. So now I'm in France, but right over there is the Swiss border. So basically, yeah, I'm just at the border, and I'm at a castle which is called Fort L'Écluse. It's a kind of a little bit secluded place, and it's a very relaxed and just with this wonderful view. I mean, this is just one of the best mornings. You know, that one of those mornings where you get an amazing light, like the scene falling into place perfectly. I don't know if you can see it very well, but like right above the river, which really creates a beautiful leading line, there are like some few clouds that are highlighted by the sun. The sun is not too strong yet, so there is still a very beautiful atmosphere. So it's just all perfect for me right now, and I'm of course enjoying all this with my X-T3, and that brings me to my first point with the X-T3, that it's a really wonderful camera to do landscape photography. I mean, I can't complain about it. The sensor is just amazing. It's a 26 megapixel. It's the same as the X-T4. That's a sensor which is as good for photography or video. I'm using it for both, mostly photography, sometimes videos when I need it, and I'm super happy in both cases. I'm also super happy about this camera ergonomics. And it's like many people are complaining that Fuji cameras are small. I am 1.91 m, and with this body comes kind of large hands. I have no problem holding it, and I'm totally comfortable with it. I mean, I can show you. It's like, of course, you've got the fingers a little bit like down like this. I already hold like some Sony camera and so on, and that's true that when you got the big handle, like that feels extremely comfortable. But if you want to gain on weight and space, then you've got to make some compromises, and I'm totally fine with it. Anyways, as landscape photographer, my camera is mostly on tripod, so for me the ergonomics is totally good. And guys, stick until the end, because when I'm gonna talk about the ugly, it's really ugly, and I guess it's important that you know it. The tilt screen, this is the amazing screen. I know that when they placed it on the X-T4, when I saw this, I said, well, that's a big mistake. It's a screen perfect for video. That's true when I do video with this camera. I regret not having a fully articulated screen, but as I'm mostly doing photography and landscape photography, I love the tilt screen. It's just amazing. It's just wonderful. They even reintroduced it on the X-T5, so this means that it was a useful screen. And honestly, the quality on top of that is amazing. The quality of the viewfinder as well is really great. Other points that are like really amazing in my opinion, the dynamic range, it's fairly good. I mean, it delivers on promises, of course. Now I'm shooting in the sun, so while shooting facing the sun, of course, you will never get like a full dynamic range. So I'm bracketing with 2 steps above, 2 steps below, and that just does perfectly well the job. Then I combine them on in Lightroom. You can do it in any software you want, and you get amazing results. So that's really something I'm not disappointed about, and I think it's a good stuff. And also the ISO. People have been complaining about Fuji's ISO because it's grainy and so on. It's a noisy sensor. Well, that's true, but it never prevented me from doing any astrophotography pictures. I mean, you can check those few pictures here, and You tell me. If it's to publish them on social medias or even to print some to a decent size, as it's gonna be like totally fine. It's a totally capable camera. So I'm not disappointed about this. Something good again about it. A lot of good stuff about this camera. Let's talk about price, and the X-T3 is very good there because it's not on sale anymore at retailers. It's still on the market and it's still a very good competitor, and you've got plenty of them on the market, so you can find it at about $600 to $800 euros, whatever you make the conversion. It's around this area, and you will find like kind of very good deals. And in my opinion, for such good camera, and if you want to start with the Fuji world, that might be a good entry point. You will get to know the camera, the menu, and if you like it, and all the dials and stuff like this, which is not something you have in the newer X-H2, X-H2S. And if you don't want to spend the 1,500 or a little more for the X-T5, that might be a very good entry point. Let's keep going with the bad now. And before that, guys, if you want to know a little more about the Fuji system and all the technicalities and specificities and stuff like this, like you can check this Pal2Tech guys, which creates amazing reviews about it and tells you pretty much everything about the Fuji system. So if you have any doubt, you can just check his channels, and he's doing wonderful stuff. So I can only recommend it to you. So go ahead, check his channel, it's amazing. All right, so let's talk about the bad. And the first thing, and that's something which is largely known among Fuji's users, which has been corrected in newer cameras, we're talking about focus. The focus on the X-T3 is fairly okay. I would say it's okay. I mean, I'm lucky to do only or mostly landscape photography, but the rare times I wanted to use it for wildlife photography, then I had some few issues, to be fair. And if you're a little bit in low light, then it's gonna be just a disaster. So you're lucky if you're dealing with like slow motion animals, like whatever animals that can be slow, and then you might be able to deal with it. I know that there are like few settings that you can put together in order to have a good focus, but this is definitely not the best focus on the market if you compare it to other major brands. And for this, if you really want a camera that performs well for wildlife, then you might just want to get one of the newer Fuji's models. And if you don't like the newer models, then I guess you have to go to another brand, so there is no point here. I keep coming back to this angle. I really think it's amazing that you guys can enjoy the view while I'm sharing with you some of this information. So the second bad thing about this camera is that it doesn't have the OIS. That might be a drag for some other it's not. For me personally, it's not. I don't need it because I'm using a tripod most of the time, and even if I'm doing a little bit of video, which are usually used for some B-rolls or stuff like this, no really like very active moves, then I have my stabilized lenses. So all my lenses are stabilized. So I've got the XF 10-24, the 18-55, which is the one mounted now, and the 55-200 millimeters, and all these lenses are stabilized, so it already compensates a little bit. Of course, if you put the OIS, it will be better, and for this the newer models have it, but for landscape you don't really need that. So for me, it's something that would be nice to have, but not especially something I really need right now. And let's speak now about the next bad stuff, and this is really bad. In my opinion, it's really bad. Batteries. This camera, its batteries are very small, and I don't have one, I don't have two, I do have 7 batteries, which is kind of a lot, but since they are small and not heavy, then I can carry a lot with me and need to think about changing them very regularly. So this is something you need to consider, and newer models have better batteries, and they shoot like, I guess it's up to 550 shots for one battery. This one goes 300 to 400, and if you shoot in lower temperature conditions, or if your battery is a little bit used, then you might just get sometime up to 150 shots. It happened to me to get out with like just charged battery and then just get like 100, 150, and it's really disappointing. But well, you learn to deal with it, and you've got plenty of batteries, so I guess that's the only solution I found here. Of course, you can play with some few of the parameters to limit battery drainage, but in general they won't last very long. The final thing that might be a drag again to some, but maybe not for everybody, it doesn't have a pixel shift. As a landscape photographer, that would be something really nice. However, pixel shift is a good thing if all conditions are perfect, if nothing is moving around and your scene is kind of still. So in certain situations that's something useful, in some other it's not really. So I don't really miss the pixel shift. That would create like huge files that are 160 megapixels, or like even like more or a bit less, I'm not really sure. And anyways, they would be very heavy. And that's not really something I'm always after, to have like the most pixelated picture, because unless I want to print on a huge billboard for a building, then my 26 megapixel is more than enough for indoor printing, and I'm not a huge printer, so anyways I can deal without it. That's totally fine. Of course, there are also other bad stuff that might be with this camera, like maybe in the menus and stuff like this, but I mean, I can't list everything here. There are like for sure some stuff that are like not perfect, but in general these are the major bad stuff that you will encounter with this camera and that you need to be aware of. If they are drag for you, go for higher camera, like a newer model, and if the newer model don't satisfy you, then once again you might have to switch to another brand. But honestly, I really have the feeling that Fuji is really addressing a lot of stuff in its newer cameras. I guess we're good here. Guys, before we continue, I just wanted to let you know that I put together a Lofoten workshop next year in February 2024. I put a link in the description below. You can check it out and see if you would be interested. If you have any questions about the workshop, anything on the accommodation, on whatever we're gonna visit or whatever, just feel free to reach out to me either directly on my website or in the comment section below here. I'll be answering to you directly. I am also putting a new guidebook for winter in the Lofoten Islands, so you guys can check it out if you want to go on your own, of course. Then you will have all the information you need to visit this place and to make sure you will visit it at its full potential. It's going to be amazing. Let's talk about the ugly. And the Fujifilm X-T3 has something very ugly. This is the failure of the internal battery. So what is happening when you have a failure of the internal battery? Basically, you will have your camera resetting to factory reset when you change the internal battery. So you take out one, you put a new one, you turn it on, and then you have to reset completely your camera. And this is extremely annoying because it's happening in the middle of a shoot. It happened to me on my other X-T3 model that I don't have here because it was sent to Fuji, and basically it costed me 560 euros to repair my camera. So you might think it's a lot of money, but wait, Fuji changed on my camera the top cap of the camera, so that part, they changed the lower part as well, and they changed the motherboard. I believe the motherboard was the most expensive part, and out of those 560 euros, there were like about 180 euros of taxes and labor force. So in the end, it's not exactly the full price. And as I said, there were like a lot of part change. So after 4 years of using the camera, I pretty much got a newer camera and a guarantee of 6 months from Fuji. So I'm fairly happy with this, and I believe that it was a good deal for me, especially considering that a used camera like this one I bought when I had to send the other one was 750 euros, and they still retail at this price today. So, and depending where you are in the world, it might vary a little bit, but in general you might find them between 600 and 800 euros. So yeah, consider it. If you need to buy a used camera, Fuji X-T3, if you want it, then ask the seller if something like this is happening. It's likely they won't tell you the truth, but in this case, ensure that if this is happening, then what can you do with the seller? That you can return the camera, that they can take part of the cost into consideration. Make sure you deal with this before buying the new camera, because if you buy a camera, let's say like 700, and let's assume you don't have to change the other part like I had because I treated a little bit badly my camera, then you might have to add up like maybe a 300 fee on your used camera. So your 700 camera becomes a 1000 euros camera, and then you might not find this a very good deal anymore for such camera. You might have wanted to buy maybe an X-T4, or maybe go a little further and buy an X-T5. So yeah, just make sure everything is all right with the camera right out of the box when you get it home, and even within a month, make sure that none of this is happening. So that was it for the good, the bad, and the ugly of the X-T3. So we tackled a lot about the Fujifilm X-T3 here, talking about the good stuff that prevents me from changing the camera, the bad stuff that I'm kind of deal with, and the ugly that unfortunately you can't do much about it. So in general, I think I'm gonna stick with my X-T3 for a little longer, especially for landscape. I really have the feeling that the newer camera didn't bring enough to me so that I can go for I can buy one of them. I would say that just one thing, maybe the X-T5 got a 40 megapixel sensor, and that might be a big advancement for many, but since I'm using this camera for night photography, a 40 megapixel like used in astrophotography would be, I guess, not really optimal, especially for the APS-C. So I think I will still stick to it. A 40 megapixel would be really cool on wide length landscape like I took this morning, for example, but I don't want to carry like too many cameras around. Doesn't really make sense. So I'm gonna stick with that one for now. And I hope this was helpful and that you guys just learned something, and maybe I helped you in your decision. That would be really amazing. So in the meantime, I wish you good luck with your photography, and see you next week for new adventures.